A father is grieving his teenage son's death. The son, Ki-tae, was still in high school when he decided to depart from the world. In school, Ki-tae has two separate friend groups, the good one which have always been close to him since middle school, Dong-yoon and Hee-june aka Becky, and the other is with a bunch of school bullies. One day at class, Ki-tae, Dong-yoon and their classmate are playing with each other while Becky just sits at his place. Dong-yoon tries to get him to join them twice, which he both refuses. Confused, he then grabs Becky outside and asks about his strange behavior. He suspects that he and Ki-tae have a problem and asks him about it, but Becky convinces him that it's nothing and he has nothing to worry about. In the present, Ki-tae's father is closing his shop, putting an announcement informing he'll close the shop temporarily, but then changes his mind and takes down the paper. He gets home and sits in Ki-tae's room looking through his photo albums. As a father, he's curious about what really happened to his son. So, he decides to search for the answer, starting with questioning Ki-tae's high school friends. Back when Ki-tae was still alive, Becky is on his way home when he gets stopped by Ki-tae. At first, he tries to ignore him by walking away, but Ki-tae still follows him. One of Ki-tae's gang members, Jae-ho, snatches Becky's bag and gives it to Ki-tae, who then tells him to pick his bag later. Later that night, Becky, even though he doesn't want to, comes to their base camp to pick his bag. There, he finds Ki-tae and his friends building a fire by burning his bag and all his books with it. Ki-tae just laughs saying they already burn it because he comes too late, and he even asks if he's having fun. Of course Becky didn't answer, but Ki-tae starts slapping him in the face multiple times. In the present, Ki-tae's father comes to the school to meet Jae-ho, as a first step to find out what happened to his son. He starts with small talk asking if he attended the funeral and saying that he just wanted to talk to him. But, he doesn't really get any explanation from Jae-ho. After going home, he goes through the album photos again. This time he finds quite a lot of photos of Ki-tae, Becky, and Dong-yoon. So, he decides to call Becky next and meet up with him. In the flashback, the three best friends are hanging out at their favorite spot, playing baseball. One of them hits too hard causing the ball to get lost in the bushes. They're looking through the bushes when Becky gives up and suggests buying a new ball, but then Dong-yoon tells him that Ki-tae adores that ball. Thankfully, Ki-tae finds it and they go back to playing again. Ki-tae asks Becky if he really likes one of their classmates, Kyung, which he denies nervously. Ki-tae then suggests that they go to Bülliéd Islands this weekend on a triple date, with Kyung and the other girls. Dong-yoon then asks if he can invite Young, his crush, along with them, and of course Ki-tae approves it. On their way back, Ki-tae tells Becky to be more aggressive towards Kyung, and jokes with each other. The three of them walk along the trail embracing each other, knowing that they got each other's back. Weekend arrives, 6 of them are on the train on their way to Bülliéd Island. The teenagers are walking around Chinatown while joking and laughing, having the best time of their lives. They then decide to stop at a Chinese restaurant to eat lunch. Young is telling them a funny story while the others laugh. She is occasionally being more caring towards Dong-yoon. Suddenly, Kyung gives Ki-tae food that is out of his reach. He asks her if she's doing it to make Becky jealous and makes the situation awkward. Walking by the shores, Ki-tae convinces Becky that Kyung must be really into Becky, but he thought otherwise. Because clearly Kyung is more attracted to Ki-tae. Back at the present, Becky is meeting up with Ki-tae's father. He tells him that Ki-tae never allows them to visit his home and that he's not in any trouble at school, at least before he moved school. Becky is not sure why Jae-ho gave his number since he moved a few weeks before the terrible thing happened to Ki-tae, so he doesn't know anything. He explains that Ki-tae did come to see him a few days after he moved, but he looked just fine. Moreover, Becky hasn't seen their other best friend, Dong-yoon, who also didn't come to Ki-tae's funeral. Becky adds that Ki-tae and Dong-yoon have always had a special friendship, because they have known each other longer than him. Continuing the flashback, after returning from the toilet, Becky finds Ki-tae and Kyung talking privately in a room. When Becky and Ki-tae finally are alone, Ki-tae tells him to make a move on Kyung, but Becky confesses that he saw them both in the room earlier, and asks what they're doing. Ki-tae tries to convince him that it's nothing, but he doesn't believe him and leaves him alone. The next day at school, Ki-tae is hanging out with his gang. He's telling a story while he notices Jae-ho and Becky sharing a funny look. He gets out of the class dragging Jae-ho to a private corner. He confronts him about how he makes fun of him. After some pressuring, Jae-ho finally gives in and tells him that they notice that he always falls silent every time a family topic is brought up, but still tries to convince him that they laugh but not at him. When 3 of them are walking home, Ki-tae finally snaps at Becky. He tells him that they have a very different household, how Becky gets home welcomed by his mom and with food on the table, while he already lost his mom and barely sees his dad. Then, he walks away alone leaving both of his friends behind. Ki-tae's father comes again to see Becky to inform him that Dong-yoon's number that he gave is no longer active. Becky then starts asking their mutual friend about Dong-yoon but comes up with no luck. In the flashback, Ki-tae and his gang are smoking together in the school area, but Becky didn't smoke, so he tells him to guard outside for them in a rude way. After, Ki-tae goes to Becky apologizing for disrespectfully commanding him, but Becky doesn't take him seriously. He doesn't take his attitude well and starts cursing at him, despite just seconds after apologizing. He bullies him while other students crowd around them, until his gang members come and separate them. After school on the railway, Dong-yoon calls Becky wondering why he didn't join them. Ki-tae acts as if he doesn't know anything despite knowing about the incident with Becky earlier. The next day, Ki-tae sees Becky entering the class and calls him to join them, but he ignores him and walks straight to his seat. Becky has been ignoring Ki-tae ever since due to his rough behavior and for stealing his crush, Kyung. Back at the present, Becky comes to Jaeho's apartment. He asks him about Dong-yoon's whereabouts, but Jaeho says that he also doesn't know. Becky then asks him for an explanation of why he gave his number to Ki-tae's father, since he moves out before what happened and has no connection to it. He also asks him what really happened to Ki-tae, and Jaeho claims that he also doesn't know. He tells him that Ki-tae got more crazy after he moved out. In a flashback, Becky shows up to school in bruises after being bullied by Ki-tae and his friends the night before. When Dong-yoon asks him about it, he won't tell, but Dong-yoon already knows it's Ki-tae's doing. He comes up to Ki-tae and confronts him. Instead of answering, Ki-tae asks back how he found out. Becky keeps cursing him while Ki-tae acts dumb with no sign of regrets at all. He finally explains that he thought that Becky was acting superior and he didn't like that. He also tells Dong-yoon to stay out of his way, but of course Dong-yoon threatens him back. One afternoon, Dong-yoon and his now girlfriend, Young, are hanging out in a park talking about Ki-tae and Becky. They both look very happy being in the relationship, walking side by side together. At night, Dong-yoon comes to the park after Ki-tae called him to meet him there. When he asks him about Becky, Ki-tae changes the topic, asking him if he really is into Young. Straightening the topic, Dong-yoon then tells him that he knows Kyung confessed her feelings to Ki-tae, but he didn't accept her because of Becky, so he wonders why did he bully Becky if he cares about him that much. The next day at school, Ki-tae comes up to Becky's seat to sit in front of him. He starts asking about Becky's bruises, but Becky straight up asks what his intention really is. He then says that he wants their hostility to end, even promises him that he'll never bully him again, but then Becky tells him that he doesn't need his apology because he'll move out of the school next week. Ki-tae is stunned by the news and starts to raise his voice, mad at his decision. This time, Becky doesn't stay silent. He strictly tells him that he's tired being his servant and thinks that Ki-tae never sees him as a friend. He says that his gang members also never see him as a friend, they only hang out with him to take advantage of him. He adds that Ki-tae never has a friend and he also never sees him as a friend. Furious, Ki-tae gets up and grabs him by his collar, until Dong-yoon separates them and takes Becky outside. A few days after Becky moves out of school, Ki-tae comes up to him like nothing happened and gives his precious baseball to him, also asking him to take care of himself. In the present day, Becky finally finds Dong-yoon's address and comes to his apartment. Becky opens the conversation by telling him how hard it is to find him. He also tells him that Ki-tae's father has been looking for him and asks him why he didn't attend Ki-tae's funeral, but he is reluctant to share it. Becky doesn't force him to spill anything and urges him to talk to Ki-tae's father because he deserves the truth. He also gives him Ki-tae's baseball before leaving. Back at the flashback, Dong-yoon confronts Ki-tae about his fallout with Becky, but Ki-tae doesn't take him seriously and just laughs it off. Ki-tae then starts to talk about Young, saying that she used to be pregnant but decided to not have the baby. He thinks that Young isn't as naive as she seems and Dong-yoon should break up with her. Dong-yoon only smiles and tells him that he already knows. After school, Dong-yoon and Young walk home together. She shares stories about her day the entire walk, but Dong-yoon doesn't pay attention to her. After arriving at her apartment, she finally asks her boyfriend why he's acting weird today. Dong-yoon simply says that he just had a headache. She asks for his favorite watch, as an assurance that they will meet again and he won't just ghost her, but she later changes her mind and gives it back to him. Not long after they parted, Dong-yoon gets a call that Young is now in hospital after trying to harm herself. Angry after seeing her lover lying helpless, Dong-yoon visits Ki-tae and his gang at their base camp, and asks him if he ever hurts Young's feelings. Without a slightest regret, Ki-tae admits that he indeed met her and tried to separate them both. That makes Dong-yoon jump up and start hitting him, but he's outnumbered as Ki-tae gang members start attacking him at the same time. Seeing his friend beaten up, Ki-tae stops them and tells them to go, not wanting them to interfere with their problem. He offers his hand to help Dong-yoon, but he refuses him and walks away. Left alone on his knees, Ki-tae finally realizes that he already lost his only two good friends, so he is determined to make amends. He visits Dong-yoon's house, and his mom opens the door and welcomes him. Before he gets into Dong-yoon's room, his mom asks Ki-tae if he knows who beat her son up, but he lies and says he doesn't know. Entering the room, he sits in front of him and apologizes sincerely, but it is too late. Dong-yoon is already so disappointed at him and tells him to leave. He begs him again to forgive him, but then Dong-yoon finally snaps and tells him that he's disgusted with him. Ki-tae always says that he hates people who act like they're superior to others, while in fact he's the one that acts that way. Flashback to the sleepover night Dong-yoon told Becky earlier, they're sitting together at the kitchen table remembering good old times. Ki-tae tells him that he's not really enjoying bullying people, he only did that for attention. He also tells him that it won't matter if he loses everything, because he'll always have him, and Dong-yoon smiles after hearing his confession. Back at the present, Ki-tae's father finally meets with Dong-yoon. Father asks him why one of his son's best friends moved out of school and the other didn't attend his funeral, as he feels there's something about Ki-tae that everyone hides. Unable to answer the question, Dong-yoon excuses himself to the toilet and then decides to sneak out. Back at the flashback, Ki-tae and Dong-yoon hang out on the railway, this time without Becky. Dong-yoon asks Ki-tae what's special about that baseball and why he adores it so much. Ki-tae finally tells him that he got it when he was a kid, and at that time, he wanted to be a professional ball bat, and the whole world would cheer for him. He playfully asks Dong-yoon who's the best in the world, and with a smile on his face, Dong-yoon said, "You're the best in the world, my friend." Ki-tae, the popular high school student, ended up alone with no friends in his last days. He ruined his middle school best friend relationship, and now he won't even see him. He bullied his other best friend so badly, he moved out of the school. Moreover, the rest of his friends are fake. You can have thousands of fake friends while you may not even have one that is a real one. So if you already find one, hang on tight, because it's not easy to find. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like and comment to help the channel out. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.